What is up? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Shred Show Live. I am so excited. I've got three new friends with me. They've been long-time friends, but three really new friends with me. I'm really excited to be hanging out with them this morning. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have one of those discussions that is absolutely going to help you. We are all about creating value, about educating you. And right now in our industry, we've got a lot going on. So I've got Keith, I've got Suha, I've got Cecilia from the BFG team. You're going to find out what BFG is. It's not what you're thinking. It's not the big friendly giant. It's not the big freaking guns. It's the Blackfin Group. And we're going to have such a brilliant conversation. You are not going to want to miss this. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Are you ready? It's time to shred. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it's not very often I get to hang out with so many incredible people, leaders throughout the industry, plus have such a brilliant conversation. And before we get into the conversation, like I said, I've got Keith, Cecilia, and Suha. And Suha, you actually set this up. You and I have been friends for a while now. When you reached out to me and said, Josh, we need to get on. We need to have a discussion. There's so much going on. So I have to shout out to you first, Suha, and thank you so much for setting this up and having your incredible team on this show today. And I know we're going to be getting into some brilliant conversations. So let's just get right into it because we've got a lot to talk about. Keith Kemph, I am excited to have you. You're the founder. You are CEO of Blackfin Group. I'm excited to chat with you guys because I'll be honest, I wasn't super familiar with Blackfin Group until recently. So we had a great conversation. And then it was like, what? Like, this is what you guys do? This is like so incredibly valuable for the industry. So before we get into that conversation, if you could, let's get to know Keith a little bit more. Let's get to know BFG a little bit. So tell us, how did you get started in the industry, Keith?
Hey, thanks so much, Josh. First of all, really appreciate the opportunity to shred with you, man. It's really cool to hang with your energy. So I got in the industry just out of college and was looking for an opportunity to work in an office 9-to-5 job and ended up in collections, basically repoing, foreclosing on people's homes. I then
you were like the bad guy, you're like repo and taking people. You're like, bro, like that's a big start to the industry. It's like, hey, sorry, I got to take your home coming in and just whack. Sorry, you're out.
Yeah. And when you're 23 years old, you feel like you're invincible, right? So with all that power to be able to work with people. But I really started to understand what the needs of people were. And that's what transitioned me into mortgage banking at some point. And ever since then, from carrying a bag as a loan originator to being a regional to being an executive at a top mortgage company, really overseeing strategic initiatives. I've just had a blast in this career in mortgage banking. I mean, there's so much that it has to offer and so many different things that you can do. And that's what's been able to lead us here to Blackfin today.
Well, I'm excited. And for those who don't know, maybe give us a quick introduction on the Blackfin Group. Who is the Blackfin Group? What do you guys do?
Sure thing. So, I've spent a good part of the last 25 years overseeing business and technology projects in the mortgage banking space. And as I became an expert on project execution, Josh, one of the things that really resonated with me, a stunning fact, quite frankly, and that remains true today, is that over 76% of all projects, strategic initiatives, and strategies in the world today fail.
Whoa.
And even last night, I was having dinner with a colleague from the industry, and we were talking about the launch of their vendor technology. And he was like, yeah, we've sold so many clients, but the client just doesn't adopt it. And so it's a failed project. And so at the end of the day, there's trillions wasted in projects. And it's not because of technology. It's due to people. It's the lack of adequate project planning, strategizing, poor communications, and the list goes on. And I started Blackfin Group to provide really national, regional community banks, retail community banks, credit unions, and independent mortgage bankers with an alternative to the average consulting firm where they go in and help advise, whereas we really go in and help roll up the sleeves, collaborate with the client, bring fresh thinking, bring innovative thinking, not this I hate to call it this, but it's like a little bit of gray-haired consulting. It's like, yeah, I like to walk into a client and pound my chest and say, I'm the expert and I know everything and you should follow my advice. No, it's a matter of strategically stepping in, collaborating with the client, really uncovering the challenges, issues, concerns. What's the project initiative that they're looking to take on? And then let's bring our proven methodologies and frameworks to the table, not start from scratch, so we can bill more hours and really just get in, roll up our sleeves, get out. I like to say that, we're playing by different rules as a consulting company, to use borrow a tagline from a former firm of mine. But, at the end of the day, we're just trying to take a different, fresh perspective so that people really can see, hey, you know what, these guys care about us and they want to make sure that we execute, because everything else is just talk if we don't execute. So that's really what it boils down to, as to why Blackfin Group is here today and what our primary focus and passion is. And Suha and Cecilia, I think, can certainly agree that that's a passion of ours.
Yeah. And this is something, it's almost poetic, Keith. Like it really is, because so many people in our industry think that technology is the problem, when really it's like the adoption and execution, utilizing the technology in the right way. You talked about implementation within projects. We're going to talk about more of that here in a minute, but it really is so interesting that we as an industry, we always talk about, we're about relationships, we're about people. And sometimes consulting agencies or consulting companies they get a bad rap. Like sometimes they kind of get that. And when I first heard, we started talking, I was like, oh, another consulting group. But as I got to know you and the team, I'm like, whoa, wait, this is different. Like this isn't your, average approach to coming in and just, like you said, billable hours or billable per project. I'm like, whoa, these guys and gals, they're really doing something different. So as we dive into that, there's so much to unwrap there, Keith. But Suha, I want to kind of jump over to you for a second, because there is an issue not just plaguing the mortgage industry, but it's plaguing our economy, our entire country right now. And many people are calling it the Great Resignation. And this is something I've discussed it a little bit, but it's not being discussed enough. And I honestly think we're just seeing the beginning of it, especially within the mortgage industry. So I'm interested, how do we mitigate this situation? How do we start to look at this situation, and how can we as leaders of the industry, how can companies like BFG, how can we really help understand and kind of move through this Great Resignation?
Hi, Josh. Thanks for having us on. I'm going to start with that. That is a great, relevant topic right now. If you go on LinkedIn and you continuously see, I'm happy to announce that I've joined this company. I'm happy to announce everybody is leaving. And I was doing some research. There's a really staggering, crazy statistic that said in November, the latest statistics say 4.5 million people left their jobs. That's in November. We haven't even looked at December and January yet. It's crazy. And in our industry, they're talking about over 100,000 layoffs. Not people leaving, layoffs. So there's something going on. And I think one of the first things any organization needs to do is look at its culture. Why are people leaving? The pandemic really created a sort of a micro ecosystem where people now know, hey, I can work from anywhere. I am just as productive, and I don't have to put up with BS anymore. There's so much opportunity out there that they are not willing to just put up and, get overwhelmed, burn out, and do any of that. So I think companies need to look at their culture. They really need to ask the hard questions. Why are people leaving? What is it that we're doing? Are we not walking the talk that we are putting out there? Are we saying one thing and then our executives and our teams are doing something else? Is there something inherently wrong in how we are doing business day to day? Are we listening to our customers? Do we know what our customers want? All of that, I think, sort of like a huge melting pot that you just stir, and people just start saying, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not fulfilling. I'm not happy. This is not what I signed up for. This is not fulfilling my purpose in life. And I think especially the younger generation who are so versed in technology that when they see an organization is not willing to innovate, not willing to push forward, they're going to go to the next organization. And I think, I know I touched on a lot of things, and I would love to hear what Cecilia and Keith have to share from their perspective, but that's what I see. That's I think, that's what hitting me the most.
Yeah, Cecilia, I'd love to hear you, because Suha, there's so much we could unpack there. Like, oh my goodness, we could spend hours just on what you were talking about here. But Cecilia, something that Suha said that I think is truly relevant is the culture of a company. I think that is becoming more and more relevant, especially in this day and age. We're going to talk about, I want to get into margin compression. I want to talk about some of those things here in a minute, but how important do you think culture is in this, in an evolving market, in an evolving industry?
Josh, it's one of the most critical pieces to a successful organization. If you have a bad culture, you do not have a good organization. The people inside are not going to be working for you. They don't feel it. They don't have the buy-in. They don't have the passion. They're just there to collect a paycheck and check some boxes and move on. So as Suha talks about innovation, we've got to innovate our culture. We've got to actually listen to our employees. We need to get their feedback and take it seriously and take action upon that feedback. We got to show appreciation. These are things that are culturally incredibly important for our success. Otherwise, we have a bunch of box checkers. Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. Keith, to that point, again, when I first met with you and the team, you could see that culture was it was so relevant as we first met, a week or so ago, as we were on this call. I'm just like, I was astounded with the type of leadership and the incredible people that you had brought to Blackfin Group. I know, just seeing and being part of that conversation, culture is big to you. So how is that, again, with your career in the industry, how has that really started to take shape and really formed who the BFG Group is?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Yeah, just based on a career of successes and failures, I've really tried to analyze what's the true measurements of success within a successful organization. What are the key pillars of an organization to be successful in today's day and age? One of the things that's always resonated with me is culture and people. People don't just want a job; they want to be a part of a vision of something that we're going to go after and we're going to deliver, a vision of something that's going to be of significant value to the people that we serve. And that has to encapsulate everything that you do as an organization in order to help reduce. I mean, one of the highest expense ratios to an organization is turnover, the hiring and replacement of skilled assets. And so we take that near and dear to our heart to make sure that we're educating people. My commitment and all the partners, and I'm just absolutely blessed by the amazing partners that we have in our team, as well as all the other supporting cast. But my commitment has been, when you come into this organization, I'm not here just for you to support Blackfin's success, but I have a commitment and a responsibility to make sure that I support your success. And that's what I spend every waking hour doing, is to support their success. Whether it's strategy, operations, technology, all the moving parts that are related. That's the only way that I can empower and support our people to be able to give their full undivided attention to our clients to ensure successful execution. If I've got them bogged down to administrative things because I'm not doing my job, or our COO isn't doing her job, then we're doing a disservice to our clients. So culture is critical. I completely agree that that's going to be the number one staying power to ensuring long-term, employee satisfaction. And companies really need to take that to heart and figure out the strategies and methodologies to be able to protect their people.
Oh, 100, and right along those same lines. I mean, you kind of mentioned it a minute ago, Keith, but like implementation, you shared a staggering statistic. And Cecilia, I want to chat with you a little bit about this, because culture is part of it. And as you kind of all alluded to, we all have our roles. None of us just want to show up to a job. We want to show up to a culture. We want to show up to a team. But at the same time, like implementation of projects and implementation of strategies, and that has been mentioned here, that's a critical piece to the success of a company, to the success of an organization. So what can lenders do? What can we do to be better prepared when it comes to that?
Josh, I mean, lots of people will say that we need to have better change management practices, the use of adoption so that we can have good implementation success. One of the things that I see that we could do critically better is to truly understand and give a proper analysis to what it is that you're implementing. What are you doing with your technology stack? Are you just plugging a hole to plug a hole? Do you understand how when this new, shiny new toy that you have that you're implementing, do you understand how it's going to impact your operation overall, the entire process from start to finish? Oftentimes, I see that people don't do that. So your implementation is immediately sideways. I have a client right now that they're implementing a loan operation system, and they wanted to remove something from a collateral underwriter position. The collateral underwriter is ordering their appraisals and following up on the appraisals and then underwriting the appraisal. They wanted to move that out of the system, and then so they moved it up to the LO space. So now the LO is going to order the appraisal. That's great. It gets done sooner in the process, right? But then they didn't think about when they analyzed their future state is, well, who's going to manage the appraisal order to make sure it comes in on time? Who's going to get the flood disclosure out when the borrower didn't e-consent to e-disclosures? They didn't think about that. So what did they do? They put it all back on the collateral underwriter. So they absolutely had no success for trying to have efficiency in one role. They moved it up the chain and then ended up moving it right back. So all they did with their LOS for that particular role was recreate the same thing that they were doing before. So I think proper analysis and understanding your current state and how you're going to design your future state is kind of important. And a lot of people don't talk about that because it's hard work.
Oh, it is hard work. And I want to talk because you mentioned something that I have talked time and time about that I truly think plagues our industry, which is the shiny object syndrome. Sometimes we're like, oh, I see this. This looks fun. This looks new. I'm going to go try this. Oh, wait a minute. This new tech just came up. I'm going to go try this for a second. And we as an industry is like this, that. And we never fully adopt it. We never fully implement it. We never give it a chance. Like anything, I talk about social media a lot. Social media is a long-term game. You have to have a long-term strategy. You can't just be like, well, I want to start a podcast and do it for a couple of months and then just give up. Or I want to do this on social media and post a couple times to just give up. Suha, I want to talk to you about this because barriers to tech adoption, whether it's AI, whether it's tech in general, this is something that is kind of a problem. This is something to Cecilia's point where it really can hurt an organization when it comes to barriers to tech adoption. So how do we better adopt? How do we better implement these types of technology in our companies?
So I'm going to take a step back and say, most people want to have the right tools so that they can be successful.
Sure.
And technology in our industry specifically can be that tool. But as Cecilia said, you really have to do your due diligence. You have to understand what problem are you trying to solve for. Technology is great, but it cannot solve everything for you. So that's probably one of the first issues that we run into when we're looking at tech adoption is because we didn't do our due diligence. We didn't understand how long it's going to take. We didn't ask the right questions. We implemented this shiny new object that we thought was going to do X, and lo and behold, it does Y. And wait, what? We just spent $1 million on that? And now we're going to throw it out the window and look at the next thing. So I think that's one of the first barriers that we have. People don't it's a mathematical equation. When you're trying to see how long it's going to take you to implement something, the time, it really is how far do you have to go from your current state to your future state, your distance, and then you divide it by the speed that you're going to go. How many people, how many bodies can you throw at it? It's a mathematical equation. It's physics. It's very simple. I need to go from A to B. I have this many number of people, and then it's going to take me this much time. And a lot of times our vendors tell us, oh, I can do this in 6 weeks. I can do this in 8 weeks. And they're not looking at the entire big picture. They're not looking, oh, are you going to put your frontline workers on this project? And now they're going to have dual roles. They're going to be on project management and project implementation while they're doing to originate and process and underwrite. And all of a sudden you have these overwhelmed individuals. They don't consider that. They just say, oh, I could do this in 6 weeks. And the lender thinks, oh, great, I can have this new shiny object in 6 weeks and we're off and running. So
Oh.
that's a second way that we can see that tech adoption gets pushed back on. Of course, there's the fear of change. Everybody in our brain, there's scientific knowledge that says the first thing your brain is going to do, it's going to put the brakes on and say, whoa, this is scary. I'm afraid of this. I do not want to do this. And people start, but I've always done it this way and it works. Why do I have to change? There's a huge fear of change there. There's misconceptions of what is that new technology going to do for you? Is it really going to solve the problem that you think it's going to solve? Or is it going to do something else? To Cecilia's example, they thought they were going to create an efficiency by moving that one task from one part of the workflow of the manufacturing process to the front so that they can speed it up. But they didn't do their due diligence, and all of a sudden it created a bottleneck for them. Mm-hmm. Many don't look at the whole entire delivery cycle, from education to evaluation, to selection, to implementation, testing and training, and finally change management. They just say, oh, I'm just going to drop this. It's plug and play. So I'm just drop this and it's going to miraculously work and solve all of my problems. And then it doesn't. And then they go, dang, what did I do here? Part of the tech adoption is communication. If you don't communicate, if the people don't understand the why and the reason behind what you're doing, they're not going to be on board. And executives and leadership sits up here, and they have this vision of what they want, but they don't communicate it. And then all of a sudden, this new LOS or new CRM is dropped on the frontline workers, and they're like, "Wait, whoa, what happened here? When did this happen? Why do I have to do this?" They don't understand the reasoning behind it.
Oh,
and
100%.
To your point, tech adoption is like networking. It's like it has to be about how you can help the other person, how it's going to improve their life. I mean, we see it on LinkedIn all the time. When you're networking, don't sell. You're building a relationship. You're trying to create, something between you two. Well, the same is with tech adoption. You have to create that relationship and show how that technology is going to improve what they're doing. Because if it doesn't, they're not going to adopt it. They're going to say, no, this is not for me.
Well, I think that's probably so. This is just there's so much in there that I want to expound on, but that is one of the things. Sometimes we think with tech adoption, it's just like, well, the technology does it itself, right? That's what we're all excited about. Technology is supposed to do it all for us. But Keith, I kind of want to unpack that because Suha mentioned a couple something for me that I think probably holds most lenders and vendors and companies, whether it's tech or whoever, it holds them back, which is fear. Most of us have fear of change. We as human beings have fear of change where it's like, no, I'm not ready for it. Even though we see something shiny or oh, this sounds good, we're still a little bit timid. We're still a little bit hesitant to make that jump. Why do you think lenders themselves shy away from working with consultants like BFG? Why do you think they're so slow and hesitate when ultimately, as Suha has pointed out, as everybody's pointed out here, they really can come in, they give that fresh perspective. They kind of look at it from a third party and say, hey, you know what? Let us kind of help you through this all. You guys are close. You're right there. You have the pieces, it looks like, but let us help you with that final little piece there. How do consulting agencies really have that value addition?
Well, it's a great question, Josh. So thank you. There's two sides to this. One is lender. So if you think about it, I was an originator. I carried a bag. I was selling loans to consumers. I got into wholesale, selling loans B2B. One of the paradigms that we have to shift away from, and it's just a natural cause in our industry. Remember, we as originators, as mortgage bankers, we run on 30-day treadmills. We are running and gunning. And what is inherent in our philosophical belief of closing loans? I want the shortest path to close the loan. I'm not going to go ask for more things than I need to close the loan. So we have a fundamental issue as that paradigm grows up into executive management and ownership of executive organization of mortgage banking organizations. Subsequently, when they look at a project, they look at it purely as a project. And project, if by definition, you look at this the right way. Project management is to ensure the output is delivered, that something is designed, built, and delivered. Program management ensures that the outcome of that project is actually achieved, that the ROI is achieved on that particular initiative. So we call everything a project, we manage everything as a project, and we take the shortest route to go live. When we don't recognize that, or we're coming up short on recognizing the full-fledged impact to the organization from a training and change management communication standpoint, making sure that our people have all the right tools, policies, procedures, job aids, all those moving parts. We just inherently want to get it done and check the box and say we're live, and then go, okay, we're picking up all these efficiencies. It just doesn't happen that way. So the fear comes in that a lot of consulting firms step in and they say, well, here's what we'll do. We'll build a communication strategy. We'll build a communication plan. And they start everything from scratch. So historically, lenders have had some justification to hold off on bringing a consulting firm in. One, because it's an outside entity that really doesn't understand their organization. Two, it's an outside entity that just wants to advise. They really don't want to roll up the sleeves. They're not going to bring a defined framework or a methodology that allows them to more efficiently get in and deliver that, help deliver that initiative. So there's this lack of trust. There's this lack of transparency. There's this, let's measure success by billing hours. So I saw all that for years as a consultant, over a decade as a consultant, and I that became blatantly clear to me. And so it's justified, quite frankly. You know, when you think about the paradigm of project delivery versus doing it right with program management, and then historically how consultants have engaged organizations, not just within mortgage banking. This is worldwide with projects all over the world. So that's why we're taking a very definitive and different approach so that we can help educate and tear down those barriers and get to project execution faster. Because you may be able to check the box that you delivered the technology, but if it's not delivering the results that you desired, then you're upside down on your ROI.
Oh, 100%. And something you mentioned here, Keith, I think is so relevant. Sometimes having that outsider's perspective to get to point A to point B, sometimes we think as a company, we think we're taking that straight line. This actually reminds me of in football. When I was in high school, I thought I was one of the best defensive ends in the state. I had a great sack percentage. I was playing really well. But one time, my coach comes over, grabs me by the helmet and says, "Pitts, what's wrong with you?" And I said, "Why? What's wrong, coach?" And he's like, "What's the shortest distance between 2 points?" And he says, I'm like, "It's a straight line." And he's like, "Well, take that straight line." And I thought, as a player, I was taking the straight line, but he showed me the video and I kept going out this way or in this way. And I was going sometimes in correlation as an analogy here. Sometimes we may think we're on the straightest path, but it's an outsider's perspective. It's somebody to come in. It's a group like BFG to come in and say, well, you know what? You're doing a good job here, but there's actually a shorter route. There's actually a better implementation plan. Let us help you make that line a little bit straighter. Let us help you shortcut that and do it the right way. As soon as my coach showed me that, I'll tell you what, my sack percentage went up and it almost tripled within the next few games. So it's having that type of that outsider's perspective to really show you how to get it there. This has been such an incredible, there's so much here. Again, we literally could go on for hours with what we've started to share. But I want to start bringing this all to, I mentioned margin compression. I want to kind of bring this home. I mean, margin compression, product diversification, increased origination and revenue, they're all huge topics. And Suha, as we start to kind of wind this down with the team, margin compression is a real thing. There's a lot of people worried about it going into this next year. But to Keith's point, to Cecilia's point, to everybody here, when it comes to margin compression, an organization, if they have the right team, if they have the right processes in place, this isn't something they have to worry about as much, right?
That's true. I mean, we know that we are in a purchase market. We know that rates are increasing. We know that the origination production volume is going to go down. But There's still people who need to buy homes, especially first-time home buyers. We're looking at, the MBA has the Home for Everyone. Thank you, Christy, for bringing that and making it an initiative for everybody associated with the MBA. You've got, Freddie Mac has Home Possible and Making Home Possible. Fannie Mae has their own program. We know we have issues with affordable housing. All of these really tie together in our industry, and it's up to the lenders and their partners to find way to get through that, whether it's by adding new non-traditional products that are non-GSE, like the reverse mortgage. We have an aging population amidst us right now. We have so many people who are getting into the threshold of the 60 and 62-year-old that don't really understand what a reverse mortgage is. Reverse mortgage has such bad connotation right now that everybody shies away from it. Originators don't discuss that option with their customers, and it's a huge market. There was actually an article about it today in one of the blogs that I follow, talking about how the origination production level for reverse mortgages continues to increase month over month, because it is a viable option. You have non-QM. That's another huge viable option for our lenders. There are so many other ways that we can transact and build a lifelong relationship. If you had somebody that was a first-time home buyer who then sold their home and bought a larger home, they leveled up, and they're now getting into retirement and they have equity in their home. As a relationship building process, it is incumbent on you to share with them what their options are. That's how you start to look at different ways to overcome that margin compression and lower production volumes. Look at other things. There's a great book called Blue Ocean Strategy. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's by Kim and God, I can't remember the co-author's name, but it really talks about how you differentiate yourself, how you become different by design. Everybody is swimming in a red ocean. You're in your blue ocean. You're offering something that nobody else is offering. And that's what the lenders need to do. And that's what their partners like us need to bring to the table and show them these other options, because there are many other options that help you overcome margin compressions and lower volumes. Again, everybody is out there. Everybody needs to buy a home. We have a shortage in inventory. We have an aging population. And these are things that we need to help them. There's minorities that we need to be able to serve. It's to me, it's all interrelated. And that's how we push the industry forward. I don't know if Cecilia or Keith have any.
I was going to say, Cecilia, I want to hear your thoughts on this, just because, Suha, what you're talking about here, diversification, how we are in such a competitive market right now. Like you said, you've mentioned this, but really, how do we diversify? How do we differentiate? How do we set ourselves apart? And Cecilia, sometimes, again, we just need somebody to come in and say, hey, maybe it's just educating ourselves. So some people, the reverse mortgage, some people think it's such a daunting, no way, I can't get in that. That's such a difficult product to get into. Sometimes it's just somebody helping, hey, you know what? It's not as difficult as you think it is. And as a matter of fact, there's some opportunities. So Cecilia, what are your thoughts there?
So product diversification, it's plain and simple. The more that you have to offer, the more customers that you can help. It's not that difficult. So let's use the reverse mortgage that Suha brought, and let's tie it back to the Great Resignation and the fact that we're laying off probably 100,000 people this year that was tied in earlier. Reverse mortgage is a new product to your organization. You can take some of that staff, the ones that are bored, that are about to resign because they're tired, or you can, the ones that you need to lay off. You can create a reverse mortgage team that is now dedicated to creating this new product for your organization and the operation behind it. You can have resources like consultants come in and help you build this out. And then there you go. I mean, it's literally that simple. It just takes thinking about it and then allowing, you've got the resources there available to you. We know this. So I think just really simply, you add more products, you're able to help more people.
And Keith, along those lines, as we wrap this up, there's so many points, so many incredible, so many valuable points we've hit on today. But when it comes to all of this, when it comes to margin compression, Great Resignation, culture, implementation, all of it, It really is, like, for those who maybe are struggling, and for those who are maybe worried about what the future looks like as a company, as a lender, what advice do you give them? What advice are you like, hey, you know what, now's the time to start to try to find somebody who is there to guide you, who is there to help you? How do we really start to look outside of ourselves and start to make these things happen within our organizations?
Yeah, great question, Josh. Thank you. Historically, I've been doing this a long time in the mortgage space, and I've ridden these ups and downs through many cycles. And at the end of the day, what happens is we become reactionary to the market, as opposed to pausing for a minute as executive leadership and really looking around and answering the question. I can't tell you how many CEOs I ask this question of, and they don't have an answer. And that it should be the number one concern, which is, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be to your marketplace? Are you just looking to close loans? If that's all, then you can take your reactionary approach. But who do you want to be to the marketplace? And the marketplace isn't just the consumers that you lend to, but it's also the people that you employ. It's the vision, the mission, the values, the objectives that you as an organization, if those want to achieve, and if those aren't clear, if those aren't crystal clear, then you're going to have a reaction, and you're just going to lay off as accordingly and ride the ebb and flow of volume. That's not the real long-term answer. The real long-term answer is, what's our vision, mission, values, goals? Who do we want to be to our customers? And then, are we actively holding ourselves accountable to the strategies and methodologies and products and offerings that allow us to achieve those goals and objectives, and have that long-term vision? Don't be heads down looking at production. Be heads up looking on the horizon, saying this is where we're going, and having a vision that's bigger than what just producing a loan is. And then making sure that you get some outside perspective, whether it's Blackfin or I don't care who it is, another consulting firm, just getting an outside perspective to help you hold yourselves accountable as an executive team. That's how you're going to get through this. And, speaking to Cecilia's point about, product diversification, doesn't that feed right into the cultural aspect that you just developed another specialized product that can serve a significant need within our industry? What's that say to your staff when you turn to them and go, hey, listen, we're going to open this specialized group for reverse lending. Maybe Blackfin Group's coming in to help guide us to put that framework together, because it's not hard, and it doesn't mean you need a whole new technology. And there just isn't that education. So getting that outside perspective to help educate you on what it takes and how you can more efficiently get to those objectives and product diversification is going to allow you to go further and not be so reactionary to the marketplace. I think those are going to be the keys to our success here.
These are all brilliant. Like, holy cow! Like, go back and listen to those last couple of minutes. What you're talking about, because Keith, that was so deep. I mean, this whole entire conversation has been so insightful. I know everybody who's listening today has got a lot out of it. But clarity when it comes to, there's so many times where we as an industry, as an organization, sometimes we're worried about outside. We're worried about what's going on. And sometimes we think where we're focused is maybe not the right place to be focused. So sometimes always having that organization come in and help us, just like take a look at it. Like, are we really focused on the right things right now? Are we really doing what's best as a culture, as an organization? So this conversation, I know it's been insightful for me. It's been incredibly insightful for me. And there's so much more we can unpack. I'm excited to have the BFG team back. Again, there's so many little facets that we've touched on that we could go deeper into. And that's what the show is all about. It's about educating, which again, you guys have all hit on. How can we educate ourselves? How can we better prepare ourselves as an industry? Keith even said it, whether it's BFG or somebody else, find somebody who can help you. This is the time to invest in your future. Stop thinking that you're perfect. Stop being so short-sighted, and look outside yourselves to somebody, an organization that can come in and turn it around for you, because now is the time to differentiate. Now is the time to diversify, and you can't do it alone. That's why these incredible people are sharing with us today. That's why they're here. It's been so much fun. So huge shout out to Suha, Cecilia, and Keith for joining us today. This has been incredible. Like I said, I just get excited. These are the conversations that I love. We need more of them, because we need to do better as an industry, and we can together. So Cecilia, Keith, Suha, thank you guys so much. It's been an absolutely brilliant conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys,
It's
with
been a
that,
blast.
it has been. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you soon in person, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody. And with that, as always, we appreciate you. We love you. Now it's time for all of you to go shred, go show up, hustle, repeat every day. See ya.